This is the story of how I learned to trim my horse and the progression and the time that it took. In this story, I'm also going to talk about some alternatives that you can take if you don't happen to have someone local to you who can teach you. So, before we dive into this story, it's important to understand the farrier world and what we're working within. So, blacksmithing farriers, when they go to farrier school, are not taught a proper trim. They are taught to prepare a hoof for a shoe, and that flattens the hoof. And that is not a proper natural functioning hoof. So if you have a farrier who is trimming your horse for barefoot, you're probably not getting a proper trim. And learning from that person, it's not going to get your horse's hooves to the optimal health that they could be if you have a really good natural trim. Now, to further complicate things, anyone can pick up a rasp and call themselves a barefoot farrier. And there are some really, really, really good barefoot farriers out there who know the hoof and know what they're doing and are just excellent. And there's some absolute hacks out there who are basically mutilating horses. So you, as the horse owner, whether or not you ever trim your horse yourself, your job is to learn to sight a hoof. And that means pick it up, look at it, and know, is that hoof in balance? How would I trim this hoof if I were to do it? What needs to be done to put this hoof in balance? Because perhaps your horse just moves funny and takes their hooves out of balance between trim, but no, is my farrier getting my horse back in balance and doing a good job? That is a vital, non-negotiable skill to have as a horse owner. And that is where you start with. That is in the hoof health guide. And the free courses, it's in the courses section and it's free. Start training your eye and knowing. If you have questions about the hoof health guide, please, please, please ask, because I really want you to start training your eye. But what happened with me is I started training my eye because I am just a lifelong student of the horse, and I would ask my farrier questions and he would grunt at me and not really answer them. And then one of the moms at my barn dared to go to farrier school in 2020. And then she came out and was like, I don't actually know how to trim a hoof. And then she was super lucky to apprentice under a really good barefoot trimmer who is also my horse's body worker, who's just like this intuitive, incredible dude who has taught us both a lot. And we're super grateful for him. So she started apprenticing under him. And then I started being like, hey, what are you learning with Phil? Because I'm not getting the answers. Every time I ask my farrier what's going on, I'm not getting clear answers. And it doesn't make sense. And she started answering my questions. And I started being able to see my horse's hooves and know kind of what needed to happen to them. Wasn't confident enough to pick up the tools and fix it, but knew my horse wasn't getting a correct trim. But this farrier did my whole barn, and it was going to be like a uncomfortable situation to fire him. Now that I know what I know about him and about my horse's feet and what was best for her, I wish that I had the strength to fire him a year before I did. And that's really important, that once you know, you move on it. And if you need support moving on it, that's what this community is for. We will support you, we will help you, we will hold your hand. What happened is my horse got hurt and needed an environment that my barn couldn't provide. And so I moved her. My horse lives 45 minutes away from me. So I moved her down by my house for her rehab. In doing that, there was no way he was going to come down to trim her. So it was just this perfect, like, oh, sorry, we're moving out of your area. Thanks. Goodbye. And then my friend's mom, who'd been learning better and better trimming and really getting very good, took me on, but she was like, I don't really want to drive all the way, it's like she lives 20 minutes on the other side of our barn. So it's like it was way outside her service area. So she's like, I don't really want to drive all the way down there for you, but you are ready to start learning how to trim yourself. Now, while this was happening, I was also volunteering at a horse rescue. This guy came and he ended up being a horse abuser and a huge misogynist. And I've cut all ties with him. But it took 3 years of him coming for his full colors to show, and I learned a lot from him. And now I want to pass his knowledge on as a not misogynist, not racist, not horse abuser. What he would do is he would have me look at the hoof, tell me what I thought needed to be done, and then he would trim the hoof and have me critique his job. And I started really dilating and like, oh, the toe's just a tiny bit high there. This heel's a little higher than this one. Like that, critiquing a really good trim helped me really get my eyes precise. So I was able to critique a really good trim, and I was also at home ready to practice on my own horse. Another thing he did for me is these horses weren't getting trimmed that often, so his nipper rounds were quite thick, and he had me start practicing my rasp strokes on just an already nipped piece and kind of seeing like when I rasp at this angle, what happens? When I rasp at that angle, what happens? How much comes off with this side of the rasp? How much comes off with that side of the rasp? And that really kind of helped me realize like, okay, I understand this enough to pick up my horse's hoof and rasp a little bit without panicking that I'm going to ruin her. Then my farrier back at home with my horse said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to trim your horse. 3 weeks later, you're going to trim your horse. You're not going to pick up your nippers. You are just going to bring the bars down with your knife and use your rasp, because with only 3 weeks worth of growth, you don't need nippers. And we did that for about 90 days of, I would do 3 weeks, she would do 3 weeks, I would do 3 weeks, she would do 3 weeks. And then she bumped it out to 4 weeks and 8 weeks. And then we went 6 weeks and 12 weeks. And then I started realizing like, actually, I prefer to do it more often. Like I got comfortable. I started using my nippers a little more. I took over 2 or 3 horses out at the rescue where I had to use my nippers more because I couldn't get to them as often. But it got to the point where I was pretty comfortable doing my horse on a 4-week schedule. And when my farrier was showing up, there was not anything for her to do really. And so she fired me. And that was August of 2022, roughly August of 2022. And I have been trimming my horse since then. My lameness vet, who also really knows hooves, which is unusual because a lot of vets, like in traditional vet school, you only study hooves for this much, and very antiquated practices that we now know better than are what vets are learning. So unfortunately, your vet's answer to everything is going to be shoes and interventions that actually aren't helpful, and we're going to talk about that in a different video. But I got really lucky to find this vet. He has a philosophy of keeping horses as naturally as possible, and he really, really knows hooves, and he fixes a lot of horses just by pointing out their hoof issues to their owners and helping them fix that. And it's not actually a vet problem. But as an aside, he says my horse's feet look amazing. I know my horse's feet look amazing because of all the studying and the work that I have done. Another thing that I did is I joined a couple Facebook groups that I will put the links to here, and people would post pictures of their horse's hooves for critique, and I wouldn't really comment, but I would look and kind of test my knowledge. I studied hooves for about a year before I picked up a rasp. I did my horse with my farrier's support for 6 months. And then I have been continuing to do my horse myself for the last 2 years while continuing my education. So I still love to test myself. Love looking at my friends' horses' hooves. If I ever meet one of you in person, I'm going to look at your horse's hooves. And now I've taken some online courses. And now I'm training through Hoofing Marvelous International to be a pro trimmer. And in about a year, I'm going to be able to teach you guys virtually how to trim your own horses. But if you need help before then, let's talk about it. Learning to trim your own horse is gold standard. Finding someone like I had to help you with their hands right there with you, with your horse, in person. If that isn't possible, an online course. I will drop the links to the good ones below. There are also some books that are really, really good. The books of Jamie Jackson. I will drop the link to him below. You cannot just pick up a rasp and think you're going to trim your horse. You have to learn to look at a hoof, know what you're looking at, and practice your skills. You can ruin your horse. But you can also learn this if you dedicate yourself to it. If you have a farrier that you like and you're like, I just don't know if my farrier is doing a good job, I offer a hoof health assessment. I can look at your horse's hooves with you on a Zoom call, and you can ask questions, and I'll tell you everything that I see and tell you why it's happening, and we will figure out whether or not you need to worry about this. If you want your horse to be barefoot and your farrier isn't supporting you, that does not mean your horse cannot go barefoot. That might mean that your horse does not have the correct diet or living conditions to go barefoot, and those need to be addressed first. Or it might mean your farrier doesn't have the skills to take your horse barefoot. And that's where we need to really look at what's going on and make a plan. So I offer a hoof health assessment. I also offer a little coaching package that I'm putting together to help you in that transition of shod to barefoot. If you're like, okay, I think my farrier's doing a pretty good job, we're going to do it, but I'm scared about the day-to-day of managing tenderfootedness and knowing what to do and making those decisions, and I just want someone by my side through that initial 6 weeks, I am happy to help you with that as well. You can learn to trim your horse yourself. At a bare minimum, you need to be able to look at your horse's hooves and know what's healthy and what isn't healthy and what your horse's hooves should look like if a professional makes you feel unsafe because of the way they talk to you, their energy, the way they treat your horse, whatever it is. You do not have to keep giving them your money.